unthinkable.
Does it hurt? Yes. Yes. Everything hurts. And they told me I can't sleep on this side, but this side hurt more than this side. So I was sleeping on this side. Okay, I know my hair is, I know I need to put my hair up, but I don't care. I'm going to get surgery tomorrow.
Imagine scrolling through TikTok late at night, thumbing past the endless stream of dances, pranks, and couples skits. Then you stumble across a pair who seem to have it all. They laugh together, tease one another, share their daily routines like an open diary to the world. Their chemistry feels real, raw, maybe even enviable. You think to yourself, these two must be in love. That's exactly what thousands of people believed when they clicked on the account of Ladarius, Deno, Brownlee, and Sayeda Zahra Hashemi. Their page attracted followers by the thousands. Their videos looked playful, fun, sometimes even chaotic in that couple goals kind of way that social media thrives on. But behind the screens, beyond the curated clips, was a reality so dark, so dangerous, that no one could have imagined where it would end up. Because just months after charming TikTok audiences, the same man who wrapped his arms around his girlfriend in a playful chokehold on camera would wrap his hands around a gun and pull the trigger, aiming it at her face. This wasn't just another couple spat gone wrong. This was an unraveling, a descent into a toxic spiral where jealousy, manipulation, and violence built quietly in the shadows until it all erupted on the night of July 4th. And here's the contradiction that makes this story so haunting. Zahra survived. A bullet entered her skull, but somehow she lived to tell the tale. The world braced for justice. Surely, the man who nearly killed her would pay the price. But what came next shocked not just her family, not just her fans, but anyone who has ever believed in fairness or accountability. Because instead of a dramatic courtroom showdown, instead of a long prison sentence, this story took a twist almost no one saw coming. This isn't just the story of a shooting. It's the story of how social media can disguise dysfunction, how love can morph into obsession, and how the cycle of abuse can pull even the strongest spirits into its grip. It's about the way society itself cheers on toxic relationships when they're packaged as entertainment. And it's about how the line between couple goals and fatal mistake can be thinner than we want to believe. Over the next chapters, we're going to peel back the layers of Deno and Zahra's story. We'll revisit the early days when everything looked like a fairy tale. We'll look at the red flags that millions ignored, the fireworks that ended not in celebration but in bloodshed, and the jaw-dropping aftermath that continues to baffle and disturb. And the truth, in this case, is far more terrifying than the TikTok clips ever showed. So grab a cup of coffee and settle in for this thrilling, true crime story. I'd love to know where you're watching this video from. Let me know in the comments. Don't hesitate to join the conversation too. Your thoughts and input are a vital part of this story. Welcome to 24/7 True Crime Chronicles, where all our stories are based on true crimes. Kindly support us by subscribing to this channel and turn on the notification bell icon so you won't miss any of our newest stories. Let's continue the story. Every story has a beginning. For Ladarius Deno Brownlee and Sayeda Zahra Hashemi, it started like so many modern relationships do, built on attraction, curiosity, and the kind of whirlwind energy that sweeps people up before they even realize what's happening. Zahra was known among her friends and family as lively, sharp-witted, and ambitious. She carried herself with a mix of elegance and humor that made her memorable to everyone she met. To those closest to her, she wasn't just Zahra the girlfriend or Zahra the TikToker. She was a sister, a daughter, a woman who had dreams bigger than her current world could hold. Ladarius, better known online by his nickname Deno, was charismatic, confident, and restless. He had the kind of magnetic personality that could pull people in, make them laugh, make them feel seen. But that same charm often came with an edge, unpredictable moods, a temper that simmered beneath the surface, and a hunger for attention that seemed never fully satisfied. When the two first came together, it was like striking a match. Friends noticed their chemistry instantly. They laughed easily, teased each other constantly, and spent long hours talking, recording videos, and dreaming about building something bigger together. To outsiders, they seemed inseparable, as if the world was theirs to conquer, hand in hand. In those early days, their families noticed both the brightness and the storm clouds. Zahra's loved ones saw how deeply she cared, but they also noticed how often she made excuses when Deno was short-tempered or dismissive. They worried quietly, but like so many families, they didn't want to push too hard. They hoped it was just the normal ups and downs of a young couple figuring each other out. And Deno? He enjoyed the idea of being part of a partnership that looked bigger than life. When Zahra smiled for the camera, when the followers started rolling in, he leaned into the role of the protective, funny, sometimes hot-headed boyfriend. In a way, the relationship became a performance stage, even before TikTok amplified it to thousands of viewers. But beneath the jokes, the skits, and the couple goal moments, there were cracks forming. Small disagreements that turned into loud arguments, playful teasing that sometimes crossed into humiliation. Nights when Zahra confided to friends that she wasn't sure why he was always so angry, and days when Deno seemed to switch from affectionate to hostile in the blink of an eye. This was the beginning of a cycle, one that so many toxic relationships follow. The highs were intoxicating. Grand gestures, laughter, intense passion. The lows were sharp and cutting. Slammed doors, hurtful words, sometimes even physical intimidation. And like many couples in such cycles, they brushed off the bad moments, choosing instead to focus on the good ones. When Deno and Zahra eventually brought their relationship online, the world saw only the highlight reel. The laughs, the hugs, the lighthearted pranks, the passion. But what no one could see, at least not at first, was that the same intensity that made their love look magnetic was also the very thing making it volatile. Zahra believed she could manage it. She thought her patience, her humor, her resilience would calm the storms. Deno, on the other hand, believed that the volatility was part of who they were, as if chaos and passion were two sides of the same coin. Together, they convinced themselves that this was love. But those who watched closely, family members, close friends, already had their doubts. Something about the way he talked over her, the way she sometimes laughed nervously instead of genuinely, the way arguments flared up in public settings. And while Zahra's family hoped for the best, they quietly feared the worst. They just didn't know how bad it would get or how soon. The relationship that began with laughter and late-night conversations would soon spill over into TikTok fame. And with that spotlight came more than just likes and followers. It brought scrutiny, pressure, and the dangerous glamorization of behavior that, in hindsight, was a warning sign of something much darker. When Deno and Zahra first launched their TikTok account, it seemed harmless. Just another couple sharing their lives online. But unlike the endless sea of accounts that get lost in the algorithm, theirs stood out. They had a spark, a rhythm, an energy that drew people in. It wasn't long before their videos began racking up likes and comments. Their joint account quickly gained momentum, climbing to more than 100,000 followers at its peak. Viewers were hooked on their banter. Some clips were lighthearted pranks, Zahra ignoring Deno to get a reaction, or Deno sneaking up behind her to startle her. Other videos showed them laughing in bed, poking fun at each other's quirks, or bickering in a way that looked, at first glance, playful. For many fans, they were couple goals. People wrote comments like, "I wish my relationship was this real," or "You guys are hilarious, never change." Their interracial love story, their chemistry, their chaos, it was all entertainment. It was messy, but it felt authentic, and authenticity is the currency of TikTok. But if you watched closely, not everything was as lighthearted as it appeared. In one clip that later went viral for all the wrong reasons, Deno wrapped Zahra in a chokehold while she tried to push him away, laughing nervously as she told him to stop. He didn't. Instead, he whispered, "Go to sleep," as if the joke was somehow funny. Zahra tried to turn it into banter, hitting him playfully, biting his arm to get him off. To many viewers at the time, it looked like harmless fooling around. But when people revisited the video after the shooting, the tone felt different, like a warning no one had recognized. Other videos showed arguments that weren't staged but real. In one, Zahra confronted Deno about his attitude, his constant grumpiness. He leaned in close, shutting her down with harsh words. She snapped back, unwilling to be silenced, but you could see the frustration etched on her face. Their audience laughed it off in the comments, writing things like, "This is real love," or "You guys fight just like me and my man, so relatable." But the reality was much darker. The same interactions that entertained their fans were, in truth, moments of humiliation, control, and rising aggression. TikTok had turned their volatility into a performance. And in the rush for likes, for followers, for validation, those red flags were ignored not only by their fans, but by Deno and Zahra themselves. The more dramatic their videos became, the more attention they received. And that's the dangerous paradox of social media. What's toxic in real life often goes viral online. People don't scroll to watch calm, steady relationships. They crave extremes, passionate love, fiery fights, explosive drama. Deno and Zahra gave them exactly that. For Zahra, the spotlight was intoxicating. She loved engaging with fans, reading the comments, laughing about their antics. It felt like she was part of something bigger, like their relationship wasn't just between two people, but a show for the world. For Deno, the fame fueled his ego. He enjoyed being the center of attention, the dominant personality, the one fans either laughed with or at. But behind the screens, family and friends were beginning to see what followers didn't. The arguments weren't always funny. Sometimes they were loud, sometimes they were physical. Witnesses later said the couple's fights could turn violent, and those who cared for Zahra started to worry that her laughter on TikTok wasn't always real. The truth was becoming harder to ignore. This wasn't just a couple with quirks. This was a relationship teetering on the edge. The 4th of July is supposed to be a night of celebration. Fireworks lighting up the sky, families gathered in parks, couples walking hand in hand under bursts of red, white, and blue. For most, it's a night of joy, freedom, and togetherness. For Deno and Zahra, it became a night of chaos. That evening, they joined friends to watch the fireworks in Flower Mound, Texas. From the outside, it looked like any other couple enjoying the festivities. Zahra had even shared little snippets earlier in the day, showing off her patriotic outfit and smiling for the camera. To anyone scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, it looked like she was having a perfect night. But behind the smiles, tension was brewing. Witnesses later said the couple began arguing as they walked back from the show. At first it was verbal, raised voices, Zahra snapping back, Deno getting louder, angrier. It wasn't the first time people had seen them fight in public. But this time, something felt different, more intense, more dangerous. The argument escalated. Zahra, unwilling to be silenced, pushed back at his harsh words. Deno, his temper rising, began to lose control. Witnesses claimed he became physical, demanding she get into the SUV they had driven that night, a black 2024 Chevrolet Blazer. It wasn't a request. It was an order. Friends who were with them recalled the unsettling moment. Zahra resisting, Deno's voice growing sharper, his grip tightening as he forced her toward the vehicle. Eventually, she was pushed into the back seat. The others got in too, hoping the fight would cool off as they left the park. But instead, it followed them. Inside the SUV, the shouting continued. Deno behind the wheel, Zahra in the back, and the friends trapped between them. Words flew like daggers. Accusations, sarcasm, desperation. Each mile only escalated the fight further, until it wasn't just words anymore. Less than 3 miles from the park, Deno abruptly pulled the car to the side of the road. What happened next would leave everyone in shock. He reached for the gun. From the driver's side door, he pulled out a handgun, a Glock. He didn't just brandish it, he waved it wildly, pointing it not only at Zahra, but at the terrified passengers in the back. They screamed, pleading with him to calm down. But the rage in his eyes was beyond reason. And then, in one devastating moment, he turned the gun on Zahra. A single shot rang out. Loud. Final. The bullet struck her just above her right eye. The laughter, the banter, the TikTok smiles, all of it ended in an instant as Zahra collapsed, her body crumpling against the seat. Blood began to flow, her life hanging by a thread. The friends panicked. One of them scrambled out of the vehicle, frantically dialing 911. In the chaos, Deno himself made the chilling call. On the recording, his voice trembled as he admitted it. "I shot her." No excuses, no hiding, just a raw confession in the heat of the moment. Police rushed to the scene, arriving on Flower Mound Road in the early hours of July 5th. What they found was horrifying. Zahra lying in the road, gravely wounded, fighting for every breath. her once vibrant energy reduced to a fragile body clinging to life. Deno stood nearby, shaken, no longer the confident entertainer from TikTok, but a man who had just crossed a line he could never take back. Zahra was rushed to the hospital, barely alive. Doctors didn't know if she would make it through the night. A bullet to the head is almost always fatal. Yet somehow, against all odds, she survived the trip to the emergency room. Meanwhile, Deno was taken into custody. He didn't resist. In fact, during his police interrogation, he confessed again. He admitted to pulling the trigger. He admitted to what everyone already knew. The influencer boyfriend who once played for the cameras had become the center of a crime scene. The headlines the next morning were everywhere. Texas TikTok star arrested for shooting girlfriend. Fans were stunned. Followers scrolled back through old videos, replaying them with new eyes, seeing red flags they had once laughed at. The chokeholds, the arguments, the cold stares. Suddenly, the entertainment looked like evidence. But the biggest shock wasn't that Deno had shot Zahra. It was that Zahra had survived. Against every expectation, she clung to life. Doctors fought to stabilize her. Family gathered, bracing themselves for the worst, yet daring to hope. And as the days passed, Zahra began to wake up. Weak. Injured, forever changed. But alive. When Zahra was rushed into the emergency room that night, doctors didn't give much hope. A bullet wound to the head is almost always fatal. Family members were told to prepare for the worst, to brace themselves for the possibility that her young life was about to end. But Zahra wasn't ready to let go. She clung to life with a determination that shocked even the medical team. The bullet had torn into her skull, leaving catastrophic injuries, yet somehow she stabilized. Machines beeped around her, doctors and nurses moved swiftly, and hour by hour her body began to fight back. In the following days, the world waited. News outlets covered the shooting non-stop, headlines spreading across Texas and beyond. TikTok couple's love story ends in gunfire. Influencer confesses after girlfriend shot in the face. The names Deno and Zahra, once associated with couple pranks and playful banter, were now synonymous with violence, betrayal, and tragedy. For Zahra's family, it was agony. Her sister Sarah wrote online that the doctors had initially told them to say their goodbyes, to prepare for the unthinkable. Yet against all odds, Zahra opened her eyes. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, she regained consciousness. When Sarah shared the update, she is awake and stable. She even took her first steps. The internet exploded with relief. Strangers sent prayers, messages of support, donations. They called her a miracle. They said her survival was proof of strength, of divine intervention, and in many ways it was. But survival was only the beginning. Zahra faced a long, grueling recovery. Every step hurt, every movement reminded her of the bullet that had nearly ended her life. In videos she later posted, her voice trembled as she admitted, "Yes, everything hurts."
Does it hurt? Yes. Yes. Everything hurts.
People ask if it hurts. Yes, it hurts. She couldn't sleep on one side of her body. Her face ached. The road ahead wasn't just long, it was uncertain. Meanwhile, Deno sat in Denton County Jail. His mugshot spread across the news. The once smiling TikTok star now in an orange jumpsuit, his expression blank. He faced charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and multiple counts of deadly conduct. His bond was set at $900,000, high enough to keep him behind bars while Zahra fought for her life. For many, it seemed like justice was finally moving in the right direction. He had confessed not once but twice, first in the 911 call, then again in his police interrogation. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses had seen the fight, friends had heard the shouting inside the SUV. This case looked as open and shut as they come. But the story was already more complicated than it appeared. Because even as Zahra's family asked for privacy, even as strangers called for justice, there were whispers. Whispers that Zahra herself wasn't condemning him the way people expected. That she wasn't ready to walk away. That, despite everything, her feelings for Deno hadn't vanished. This is the paradox of abuse. The cycle that keeps so many victims trapped. Outsiders see a monster and a victim. But inside the relationship, it's far messier. Love and fear, anger and forgiveness, hope and despair, they all blur together. For Zahra, the man who had nearly killed her was still the man she had once loved. Still the man she had built a social media life with. still the man she wasn't ready to let go of. And as she healed in the hospital, Deno's legal team began working quietly behind the scenes. They weren't preparing for a dramatic trial. They were preparing for something far more unexpected. When news broke that Deno had confessed to shooting Zahra, most people assumed the legal process would be straightforward. He had admitted to pulling the trigger. There were witnesses. There was a critically injured victim. On paper, this looked like a textbook case of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a charge that often carries years, even decades, in prison. But the legal system is rarely that simple, and this case would prove just how complicated, and to many, how disappointing, justice can be. As Deno sat in jail, awaiting trial, his lawyers began shaping a new story. Yes, he shot Zahra, but no, it wasn't intentional. According to their narrative, the gun had accidentally discharged during the argument. It was a spin, a way of softening the reality of what had happened on Flower Mound Road. Instead of standing as the star witness against the man who had nearly killed her, she seemed to back his version of events. Whether out of fear, trauma bonding, love, or a complicated mix of all three, Zahra did not push for the harshest penalty. She did not frame him as a would-be killer. In fact, she appeared to support the idea that the shooting was in some way accidental. For prosecutors, that changed everything. Without the victim's cooperation, without her testimony to seal the case, the chance of securing a long prison sentence grew slimmer. And so, behind closed doors, a deal was struck. In February of 2025, Ladarius Deno Brownlee stood in court and pleaded guilty. Not to attempted murder, not to an intentional act of violence, but to a shooting framed as an accident. The judge accepted the plea, and the sentence, 10 years of probation. That's right. No prison time, no lengthy sentence, no justice in the way most people expected. A man who had pulled the trigger, sending a bullet into his girlfriend's head, walked out of court with probation. When the news spread, the reaction was explosive. Commenters flooded social media with outrage. How is this justice? If it had been anyone else, they'd be locked away for decades. What kind of system lets you shoot someone in the face and go home? For Zahra's family, the decision was devastating. They had prayed for her recovery, prayed for accountability, and now the justice system seemed to have handed Deno a free pass. For Zahra herself, the reaction was even more complicated. She defended him. She spoke cryptically online, insisting that outsiders didn't know the full story, that people didn't understand what had really happened in the car that night. To many, her words were heartbreaking. The voice of a woman still trapped in the cycle of abuse. To others, they were infuriating. How could she stand by him after what he had done? But whether people agreed or not, the facts were unshakable. The court had spoken. Deno was free. The story of Deno and Zahra is not just about one couple. It's a cautionary tale, a reminder of how love can turn into obsession, how social media can disguise dysfunction, and how the justice system doesn't always deliver the outcome we expect. On TikTok, they look like a couple in love. Behind the scenes, they were caught in a storm of jealousy, control, and violence. And when the storm finally broke on that 4th of July night, Zahra was nearly killed. Yet somehow, she survived. But survival wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of another cycle, one that left people stunned when she returned to the man who pulled the trigger. That choice shocked her fans, devastated her family, and raised haunting questions about what happens when abuse is glamorized and normalized online. This case is a sobering reminder that behind every viral video, there may be a story the world doesn't see. And it's a reminder to all of us, never ignore the warning signs. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure you don't miss what's coming next. This is just one of many cases we cover here on 24/7 True Crime Chronicles, where we bring you the real stories, the untold details, and the lessons that matter. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss another deep dive into the cases that shock, disturb, and teach us. And if you found value in this video, give it a like and share it, so more people can see the truth behind the headlines. Because the more we talk about these stories, the more we learn, and the more we can protect ourselves and others from letting history repeat itself.